Brookfield, which is roughly about, let's see, probably about an hour and a half, give or take, from where they lived. You know, that's the shortest way, one way. And roughly about 20 minutes before the funeral service, I realized he wasn't coming, and that was not like him. And it really bothered me. And I realized that week that a lot of things were never going to be the same, that my life was never going to be the same, and thousands of people's lives were never going to be the same after that horrific attack. So that's what I kept thinking of as I was watching that footage last night and reliving those memories. But, well, I said I wasn't going to talk about Syria, but this is something I found on a friend of mine's Facebook page, who also happens to be a former communications teacher from college. And a couple of things that I've noticed in it, that a sensible discussion of the missteps in Syria, absent the name calling and of many posts. I oppose this action in Syria, but I also decry the attacks on the President of the United States that are so often irrational and hate-filled, often by those loudly proclaiming their Christian beliefs. And I see a lot more and more of that. For example, the biker situation in Washington, D.C. yesterday, which, by the way, the numbers were like 10, 15,000. You know, just a far cry of the million that were bragged to be on their way. And I know this is probably blasphemy coming from an atheist, but remember, Jesus called for obedience to Caesar and did not pronounce a diatribe on one of the most corrupt leaders in the history of the world. We have a right to speak out as American citizens, but we should stop trying to shout one another down. And that's part of the reason why I get so tired of the Obama haters. Because, okay, I get it that you don't like Obama. I don't like Senator McCain in the fact that, let me back that up. I do like Senator McCain, but I question his credibility to become president when he chose Sarah Palin to be his running mate in 2008. And in 2012, Mitt Romney was a weak candidate. And to me, my thought was, if this is the best the Republicans can do, they deserve to lose. Mitt Romney had little charisma. I don't doubt his patriotism or his faith. I admire that. I admire both. But at the same time, I can't imagine him in some of the situations we've had to deal with since the re-election. I'm not saying President Obama's done everything right or to my liking. I think this whole thing in Syria is a one big mess. But let's stop the name-calling of the president. This is not the time for that kind of dissension. You disagree with him? Fine. But let's stop the name-calling, okay? I'll poke fun, but I will not hit below the belt. Okay, I won't hit anyone below the belt. I might hit them when they're not looking, but I will not hit below the belt. Well, the above information largely came from Robert Bernard Reich, born in 1946, is an American politician, academic, writer, and political commentator. He served as the 22nd United States Secretary of Labor under President Bill Clinton from 93 to 97, and was named by Time magazine as one of the 10 most influential cabinet secretaries of the last century. As a matter of fact, 5 years ago, he served on President-elect Barack Obama's Economic Advisory Board. He's a graduate of Dartmouth College. Reich is currently Chancellor's Professor of Public Policy at the Goldman School of Public Policy at the University of California, Berkeley, a former Harvard University professor, and the former Maurice B. Hexter Professor of Social and Economic Policy at the Heller School for Social Policy and Management at Brandeis University. He is a contributor to CNBC and is a frequent political and economic commentator on MSNBC, CNN, This Week with George Stephanopoulos, CNBC's Kudlow and Company, and NPR's Marketplace. One of the most disturbing aspects of the president's evolving fiasco in Syria is its stunning lack of strategy. The rationale for bombing Syria has moved at lightning speed from teaching Assad a lesson to maintaining America's credibility because, From the moment the president drew a line in the sand on Assad's use of chemical weapons, the White House seems to have no contingency plan for what to do if Assad crossed the line, then for what to do if the White House couldn't persuade its major allies to back a military strike, then what to do if Congress wouldn't back the president. Nor does there appear to be any contingency plan for what to do if the United States bombs Syria and Assad uses poison gas again. Even if Russia provides a face-saving way out of all of this, the affair has cost the president the most important resource of his office, the appearance of having power. And the president's power is always dependent on the power of other political actors at home and abroad, how they perceive him to have, or rather what they perceive him to have. So the basic rule for maintaining or enhancing presidential power is to test it publicly only when a president knows he'll win, or to risk it only when the stakes are so high he has no choice, and even then carefully plan for what to do in the event of a loss. In this instance, the president appears to have dug himself into a deeper hole, and along the way put at risk a larger amount of his power at a time when he is about to confront Republicans over the debt ceiling, the Affordable Care Act, continued funding for the government, and ever more draconian sequester, immigration reform, and everything else he wants to do over the next 3.25 years of his presidency. Now, Wright goes on to say that he campaigned for Obama in 2008 and 2012 and still considers him one of the smartest people ever to occupy the Oval Office, but something has gone seriously wrong. Is it due to the insularity of his White House, his second term, second-string staff, fatigue, or reemergence of the strange passivity we witnessed in the first debate with Romney? I don't know, but frankly, it worries me, and it should worry you too. And this is really, I don't know, an about-face from a president who normally, I think, has his act together. But only time will tell. Continuing on with the program. Yesterday, I read or told you about Vladimir Putin's letter to the editor in the New York Times. Tell you what, I have created a music bed for that, for such a thing, and I'm going to play it for you right now, assuming I can still find it, so bear with me. It'll take a little bit to find here, and hopefully it'll load, and of course it's not showing up right away. What did I put that in? There we go. Crazy thing. Alright. It's taking longer to load it than the actual card. So I'll put this over here. That into there. And here are some of the responses to Vladimir Putin's letter to the editor in the New York Times. Alright? Are you ready? Here we go.
I gave a letter to the postman. He put it in his sack. Bright and early next morning, he brought my letter back.
Message for you, son.
I know, it was kind of cheesy, but hey, I threw it together at the last minute. Well, in a response to an op-ed by Russian President Vladimir Putin, published by the New York Times on Wednesday, readers responded to multiple aspects of his argument that a former head of the KGB seemed to snatch the mantle of peace while supporting Bashar al-Assad's beleaguered Syrian government, that President Obama may have outmaneuvered him on the global stage, and what they saw as Mr. Putin's goal for championing dialogue on this issue while suppressing dissent in his own country. Well, here are some responses that I have found regarding that. From Dmitry Mikheyev of Moscow: I am a Russian American who has no reason to love the KGB and has all reasons to love America. America has to learn to live with complexities of the real world. Black and white thinking leads to endless wars with others. Another person writes in, Sergey from St. Petersburg, Russia: as a Russian citizen, I wanted the American people to know. What I want the American people to know is that we Russians are not really the opposing force for you. Syria is too much close to our borders, instability and chaos combined with chemical weapons is a real threat for Russia. John C. writes from Central Valley, California, "What a crazy world we are living in, when Russia sounds more sane and responsible than our own government on a serious international crisis. Any moment now, Rod Serling is going to walk into my living room and announce that I have just crossed into the Twilight Zone." I like that one. If the real-world objective in this situation is chemical weapons stockpiles, then certainly it is more sensible to dismantle and destroy the stockpiles under the scrutiny of organized international verification than to vainly attempt to deter and degrade the Syrian government's military capability with the vague hope that they will not do it again. That's from Jordan in Long Island. So those are just a few of the responses that I have found in the New York Times regarding the situation in Syria. Well, let's see here. One more thing on my mind today, and what a pleasant surprise. Got some rain again. We had a little bit of rain last weekend. I don't think I mentioned it on the program, partly because it slipped my mind until now. But last Saturday night / Sunday morning, it had rained sometime during the night. But it was so hot and muggy. When I got off at 3 o'clock Sunday morning from work, it was like walking into a steam bath. I mean, it was just the kind of heat and humidity where you just want to take your clothes off. And in the right situation, it might be a lot of fun, but not out in the public. But it is so hot and miserable. Now, last night, I was talking to a friend of mine around a little after 10 o'clock, and I thought I saw a flash of lightning off into the east. And he goes, "Did you see that?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I did." I'm like, "Good," because I thought I was having a stroke. And then pretty soon it started cutting loose, and it stormed off and on for at least the next 3 or 4 hours that I know of before I went to bed about 3 o'clock. And we had a couple of good lightning storms and a good downpour from about 1:30 on. But, it was finally, it's cooled off this morning. It's a lot more pleasant. And the smell of the rain, and finally get some moisture in the ground. But we need a lot more rain. Yeah, a lot more rain. But at least my allergies are finally going, "You're going to get some relief, Joe. You don't have to take any more Claritin D for a while, or that pseudoephedrine." Which I'm thinking, oh, good. That pseudoephedrine, all it does is scramble my brainwaves. And they're scrambled enough as is. Well, speaking of the weather forecast, we're going to take a gander at the weather forecast in a few minutes. Also have the latest in news headlines. Well, the CBS World News Roundup a little bit later on. Market information, plus a whole lot more on this edition of First Cup. So stick around. I know you will, because otherwise you would have hit the delete button by now. Or have you already? You're listening to First Cup, and I'm your host, Joe Haffner.
He doesn't get it.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Hey, what's up? Holla at ya, boy. XOXOXO. You getting these texts? Question mark. Where are you? What are you doing? OMG, you are making me mad. You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It's not acceptable to call me a nigger.
It's not acceptable to call me a spick.
To call me a chink.
To call me a fag.
It's not acceptable to call me a kike.
And it's not acceptable to call me a retard or call yourself or your friends retarded when they do something foolish.
The R word is the same as every minority slur. Treat it that way and don't use it.
Spread the word to end the word.